Hello everyone, I hope you've been well and welcome back. It's been a bit of a hot minute since I've gotten in front of the camera like this. It's been a bit of a hectic one, both between work and personal life and health and everything else, but I'm really excited to hopefully start filming some more videos. As you can tell, I'm actually in a new room right now. Recently switched over and did a whole do-up of it. I'd love to share that all with you at some point. But today's topic, we're going to be talking a little bit more about conventions and specifically cosplaying at conventions, but a lot of this can also just be getting ready for a cosplay photo shoot as well. Previously I've done a video called Convention Tips and Tricks, and there's going to be a little bit of crossover for that. This one is probably going to be a little bit more about getting ready before the actual convention, and like I said, a lot of this will also be useful if you are planning to do a bit more of a larger photo shoot, or you're working with a photographer, just because this is also a really special part of cosplaying is, finally getting out to a location or working with another artist that you really love. So there's a couple of things that I have learned from my many years to kind of help with getting ready for the day, enjoying it to its fullest, and kind of things you can do to be a bit more prepared. Now, in my convention tips and tricks video, I did a little bit about maybe some things you can take to a convention, especially things like a cosplay help kit. Generally for me that involves like extra bobby pins, safety pins, extra hair ties, band-aids if you need any like headache medicine as well from the good old wig head. Of course, this also includes food and water as well. I know that it's very easy to just go for the whole day and just not even think about that stuff, but later you will definitely thank you for it. Now, in terms of the actual convention, one thing I always love to do is when the schedule is available for the convention, I'll have a bit of a look just to see if there are any panels that I'm interested in, but also maybe if there's any cosplay meetups. Nowadays, whether it's Critical Role or Fire Emblem or, different anime as well, I think that there's always going to be different cosplay meetups. Sometimes this will be in the schedule and sometimes it'll just be on like fan pages for like the Instagram or Facebook of the convention. Or maybe your convention has like a photo wall with some different photographers, or you've booked your own specific photo shoot. I personally love just noting this down in my phone, just kind of like a bit of a run sheet almost. I mean, obviously I don't always stick to it, but I think it's very easy for me to get caught up in the convention that I kind of miss out on certain things. So I just have a note to refer to. It means I can have a look and see what was scheduled when. Now, this next one is a big one for conventions and specifically photo shoots, and that's if you get a chance, try all of your cosplay on together. I know this might seem like pretty basic information, but there's something to say about trying on the wig, makeup if you have the time, and trying all the bits of the costume. Number one, just so I can get an idea of what it looks like all on me. Number two, I can then practice poses as well. Take some selfies, pose in a mirror, just so that way, even if you don't have any photo shoots planned, but maybe someone wants to grab a picture of you or something like that, you kind of don't feel too awkward and are quite comfortable in, maybe a more action pose or a bit more relaxed, and so you've got something to kind of pull from. And then the other huge thing for me is being able to figure out what on my costume maybe moves around in a way I don't want it to, meaning do I have to adjust it throughout the day, which is one of my pet peeves in cosplay. I hate if something isn't attached properly, or I have to kind of keep stopping and pulling up my socks or rearranging some armor. And it will also help me figure out if I need to reinforce anything. This is definitely overkill and you don't have to do this, but personally I love taking photo shoots of the costume before I wear it to a convention. In my head, it's kind of like, if I can survive, going in a forest and walking up and down hill and in mud and posing for an hour or so, it means that it'll survive the convention. If I think, oh, this is actually getting a bit weak, or if something even breaks, at least I know that I'm kind of giving it a bit of a stress test for the actual day. And this also goes for making sure that everything is attached properly. Even if you can't do this, I always suggest try on your costume, but maybe just do a bit of a walk around, even if you just go around the house or, go out the backyard for a little bit, really get some movement in there, see if you can actually sit down. For me, sometimes we'll train into the convention, which is generally fine, but if we're driving in, having to sit down fully, what do I put on when I get to the convention, and just all this stuff that really helps me not be too stressed during the morning. And I think probably following that as well is, I previously did a video talking about my Alex Straza costume, and I really talked about attachments there. I think wherever you can either tack accessories together, so you're kind of putting on one thing instead of like 3 separate things, or things where armor can clip on so it stays up. Basically, whatever you can do to make your life on the con day the easiest is going to make your life a lot easier, obviously. So for example, with my Blythe costume I've recently done, with the kind of knee armor, I actually just got some really small black safety pins and pinned them to my leggings. It just meant that I didn't have to adjust them throughout the day. I knew that they were going to stay where they needed to. And I think the other thing is that don't be afraid to kind of slightly alter or change elements of the costume to accommodate this. You know, there are definitely some costumes I've made, whether it be a kind of bigger project or just some really quick small ones, where I knew I was pretty much only, you know, doing either my own photo shoot, so I was pretty much staying in one spot, or I was just shooting in the backyard. So it meant that even if things kind of fell down or I had to adjust or whatever, it just didn't matter that much, that it was kind of put together a bit rushed. Whereas if I'm like, hey, this is going to be a cosplay I could wear to a convention, or I really want to do, you know, a longer location photo shoot, I tend to kind of change up a few elements then. So even if it's not completely accurate, and in all honesty, I rarely do fully accurate costumes anymore, just because I like adding my own little flair. And this is the same thing if, you know, an aspect of the costume isn't maybe super comfortable for you to wear for whatever reason, don't be afraid to change that. I personally love seeing it when people add their own little flares, or they kind of put their, you know, being comfortable or being able to wear it for a long time over accuracy. And so, you know, if you kind of need to stick some things together, or you think, look, just physically this fantastic game armor just doesn't quite translate super well into real life and someone actually wearing this for an extended period of time. I think with my Illyria armor I did a while ago now, her skirt has all these different pieces attached, and what I actually did is I just, instead of having it as several different layers, I basically either tacked everything together and then just kind of had 1 or 2 buckles which clipped it in the back. It just meant that first of all, it was more comfortable and less adjustment, but when I was putting it on, it saved time as well, because I could just kind of do what I needed to and then it was good to go. Moving on to another great tip, which I don't always do, but I'm going to put it in here anyway, is clean your makeup brushes. And this kind of goes for just my general room anyway. I don't actually have a specific studio or area to craft, so all of that stuff happens pretty much in my room. So it means that generally a couple days before the convention, it's a mess. I've got foam, I've got my sewing machine, there's just paint, everything's everywhere. And I definitely am a bit more of like a, if it's a cluttered environment, it kind of freaks my brain out just a little bit. So I try and declutter it before the convention, preferably a couple of days, but that doesn't always happen. Clean my makeup brushes, make sure my area is all nice and organized. And then this kind of leads into the next thing, and that is kind of getting everything nice and ready for your costume. And by that I mean whether you have a photo shoot or a convention coming up, maybe just lay out all of your pieces. I'm sure we've all been there where you get to the convention and you think, oh shoot, I have literally forgotten part of my costume. And it happens, you know, but what I try and do is to avoid that as much as possible, is to just lay out everything that I need for each costume. If it's several costumes, if I've got a photo shoot coming up, I'm like, yep, all right, you know, I don't want to be stressed on the morning of, because usually, you know, it takes a lot of effort to kind of get in character, and then you have to prepare yourself to be in this costume for a little while. So the less stress I can put on myself in the morning, the better. I'll lay out my makeup, all the accessories, if I'm at like any specific footwear, anything like that as well. Just means that when I wake up in the morning, everything's laid out. I can just, you know, slowly get ready, put everything on that I need to, and I'm not kind of running around freaking out, oh, where did I put that necklace, or, you know, where was that accessory that I really needed. Leading on from that, and this is probably only specifically for people who do kind of larger costumes, is having a bit of a rough idea how long it takes you to get into costume as well. Again, this loops back to being able to do a photo shoot before the convention. With Blythe, because he does take a little bit longer to put on, I did kind of go, all right, let's just get a rough rough estimate of how long it takes to do everything. You know, what can I do beforehand? You know, I had some buckles on my arms that I could keep buckled up, so I would just slide them on. You know, how long does it take to pin everything, put on the armor? Same with the makeup as well, if it's a bit more of an intense style. Having just a rough idea of how long I need for this just comes down to, again, making it an easier morning for me, so I know, you know, when to wake up. And generally I'm going with a friend or two, so I'll kind of need to time with them as well, so I can let them know, hey, I'm gonna be ready by this time, you know, let's do it. And obviously I like having time for breakfast in the morning as well, which is a pretty important thing. So just making sure you've got a bit of an idea, not just everything is set out ready to go, but a rough idea, you know, are you doing body paint? Because we all know that does take a while, and things like that. Just giving yourself just a little bit of time for errors if anything pops up as well. Because even if you have time left over at the end, that's when you can take those selfies, strut around a little bit, make sure everything's good to go. This one is something that I've definitely brought up before, and that is about embracing the character that you're cosplaying. Back in the day, I did a panel called Confidence in Cosplay, and a lot of that stuff I still really believe in. And I kind of always tell myself, you know, even if I'm a bit stressed or I'm really not 100% happy with the costume, on the day I kind of let those insecurities go. As soon as I put on the costume, I become that character, in terms of just being able to enjoy, you know, dressing up as this piece of media that has really given me inspiration or that I really love, and then just interacting with other amazing people, whether it's with a photographer or if it's just catching up with friends at a convention. And I think the other thing as well is, when you are in costume, you know, don't go around kind of comparing yourself to others, or, you know, I know it's very easy, especially if you are starting out, to kind of feel a bit more down about, oh, you know, I haven't used such great materials, or, you know, I really kind of rushed this, I could have done it a bit better. I think that process of learning and this idea of, you know, being perfect right away, that's a little bit overrated, because some of my fondest convention memories are not just from the costume, but from the people and the interactions I've had, you know, way back in the day when I used to do kind of average costume, or before I properly learnt sewing or anything like that, with my hot glue dreams, never forget. You know, I still have really, really fond memories of them, and I promise you will as well. So don't compare yourself. Don't, you know, feel down if your costume isn't, you know, master craftsmanship level in a cosplay competition or anything like that. There's going to be amazing things, and people are going to be excited to see you no matter what. I can tell you the majority of people, instead of, you know, you might notice this flaw, or you've painted this a bit funny or something like that, no one will notice that. I promise they will just be excited to see you. And, you know, the whole thing about conventions is this whole atmosphere of being around like-minded people. So please don't worry about that. You're going to have a great time no matter what, and just enjoy meeting people and enjoying the convention. Now, just a couple more tips specifically for photo shoots, whether you do a photo shoot at a convention or a specific location shoot. One thing I like to be prepared with is knowing what location you're actually going to. I'm really, really lucky in that I work with my dad most of the time for photo shoots, so we have some pretty kind of key places that we like to go to. To be fair, I've been doing this for like 12 years, so I've got a lot of experience in kind of just knowing where I naturally want to go things. And don't be afraid to just kind of have a bit of a look around your area, or if there's somewhere you can get to easily enough. You know, nowadays there's heaps of gardens, or, you know, I live in the hills, so I'm quite lucky with lots of forests and lakes. Even like some of the urban environments can be really great as well. So make sure you have an idea of, you know, where your character would be, or if you're wanting to do like a certain theme, have a bit of a look out for those. And then also keep in mind the weather. Which is probably something you would expect would be at the forefront, but there have been times when I have done a definitely more covered up costume in warmer weather. Sometimes you can kind of get through it if it's just like a shorter location shoot, but I've definitely had times where I kind of think, yep, probably should have saved this to winter, or vice versa as well. So just keep that in mind as well. What I'll do is, I've got a day off that lines up with everything else. I'll just keep a constant eye on the weather as well. I have been rained out of photo shoots before, which really friggin' sucks. But you know, that's just how it's going to be sometimes. Sometimes there will be little failures. In those cases, I just come home and just take some nice portraits inside while I've got the time. I also like having kind of backup photo shoots if I'm going somewhere I'm not quite as sure. Back in the day, I did a Monogatari shoot, and I think we literally went to like 3 different places because we just kind of, I mean, it was great because we got a good variety of photos, but we just didn't quite get the atmosphere I wanted, or like the oval was super busy and I didn't want to shoot around that many people. So don't be afraid to kind of move around a little bit as well, if the time works and it works for the photographer. Talking about the weather as well also comes down to lighting of the photo shoot. I won't get too technical for everyone, but you know, if you're working with sunshine, expect some harsher shadows, and if you're working in more of an overcast environment, that's when you've kind of got a lot more even lighting. Personally, most of the time I like to shoot in an overcast, just because that way when I'm editing the photos, if I'm adding on filters or effects, they just kind of, it works a little bit better, because when you're working with sunlight and harsher shadows, you do have to be a little bit careful, you know, what angles you're going from, and make sure your face is evenly lit up as well. That being said, if you're going for a specific look, like I personally love golden hour is the best, but you can get some really great photos with that. So keep that in mind as well. You know, sometimes, and I've had it too, where I've gone out taking some photos and I just wasn't super happy with them, and a lot of the time that is either because the location wasn't quite what I wanted, or the lighting was kind of playing up a little bit. So yeah, in terms of keeping track of the weather, I also keep track of like, is it going to be really sunny, or is it going to be, you know, a really cloudy day, and what atmosphere do I want for the character. Again, practice as many poses and facial expressions as you can in the mirror before you do it. Just because I've been doing this a long time, I do have kind of natural poses that I fall into. This will come with practice, I promise, and you'll start to realize like what angles you like on yourself. But I think the other thing as well, like it's great to have that, but don't be afraid to play around. You know, I think for every like good shot, there's like 10 other shots of me either laughing halfway through or doing a bit of an awkward pose. You know, I don't always know what looks amazing. Luckily, there's heaps of great resources out there. You know, there's fantastic YouTube videos. Just if you just look up general modeling, you know, I feel like arms and hands are a hard one, because how do you kind of hold them without it looking too awkward? You know, even on like TikTok and Instagram, there's all these beautiful short videos about posing as well. So definitely look at those if you're looking for a bit more inspiration, or you're not quite sure, you know, how to pose your hands, or you know, shooting lower or higher, things like that. Now, if you are working with a photographer, definitely keep in mind a couple of things. I guess the obvious one is, you know, is it a paid shoot, or are they just doing it for free? You know, when can you expect edits? How many edits? Things like that. I think nowadays a lot of photographers do have some pretty clear guidelines on, you know, the expected time range, and you know, things always happen. It could be pushed back for whatever reason, but I think keeping everyone accountable in that aspect is probably quite important as well, or just keeping communication with the photographer if it does have to be pushed back. You know, how many edits are you expected? Do you pick the edits? Do they? Things like that. It's another one of those things where personally, if I'm as organized as I can be before the shoot and I know exactly what's expected, it just means I can go into it without worrying and just enjoy being the character. It's a pretty obvious thing as well, but just make sure you're comfortable with them. I know a lot of people kind of like having, I guess you kind of call it like a cosplay handler a little bit, where they're kind of there for the shoot to help out, whether it's just to make sure, you know, adjust your wig or your costume, make sure it looks really good, or just for kind of a peace of mind having a friend there. Never be afraid to ask for that either, and just make sure you're careful with who you work with. You know, talk to your friends, see what other cosplayers, what other cosplayer photographers that your friends use, or you know, work with people that you know as well. I think that's pretty much everything. If you guys have any other tips yourselves, please do share them. Obviously the most important thing is just making sure you're comfortable and happy. If for some reason you can't cosplay, recently that happened to me. I just kind of overdid it a little bit on the first day, and it meant the second day I had to take it a bit easy. Originally I was a little bit disappointed, but I took the camera, took some photos of my friends, which actually ended up being so much fun anyway. So don't be afraid if you can't cosplay for whatever reason, or you need to take a break or call out early. There will always be another experience out there for you as well. Just be safe, be happy, and have fun in cosplay. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.